Welcome to the Next Big Future YouTube channel. Brian Wang is the founder and almost exclusive content provider for the Next Big Future blog, which is the #1 science blog in the known universe, enjoying an average of over 1 million views per month. My name is Randy Kirk. Brian's been a frequent guest on my channel discussing issues generally having to do with Elon Musk's various companies. We are super excited to invite you back to another edition of the Next Big Future. I'm Randy Kirk. Brian Wang is the founder and the primary, I'm like almost the 100% content provider for nextbigfuture.com, which is, by the way, in case you haven't heard me say it before, the #1 largest scientific blog in the known universe. And so far, at least, none of the aliens, Brian, have landed and tried to take away your crown.
No. I'm still doing good.
All right. So today we're going to jump into another bunch of different, really super exciting science situations that are out there. Any teasers, Brian?
Um, so new space planes, new superconductors, AI. It's I think it's going to be a year where AI, humanoid bot, and superconductors are going to be the stories of the year. That these things will happen in a major way, and it's just like the large language models every week, every day last year was happening. That will continue and expanding to the other areas. Superconductors probably won't get really going till after the March presentation by the Koreans. They're going to go to a big conference in March, and they'll reveal some stuff there. So the first half of the year for them and the Chinese replication and stuff, that needs to kind of like lock down. But then it'll start moving substantially once that news is confirmed.
So for those of you who have not been regular listeners of this particular channel, we have been talking about superconductors now for, I guess, 3 or 4 weeks, and the idea of having a room temperature superconductor as opposed to only having superconductors that have to be
Liquid helium, liquid nitrogen,
yeah, with liquid hydrogen and whatnot. The idea that could happen would change electricity forever in every single way that you think about electricity. We would be able to use it more effectively, efficiently, and reduce all kinds of issues regarding electricity. So let's get into it and talk about it.
Yeah. So the news was that a New York magazine interviewed Sinead Griffin from Berkeley National Labs. So you have Lawrence Berkeley National Labs, one of the, I think, like 10 major national labs in the United States. So it's kind of like the most prestigious science places on the national labs. And she is a theoretical physics person who used supercomputers and models to analyze materials. Early on, way back in July of last year, when this was all breaking out, she did analysis that said, oh yeah, these could have some, this LK99 room temperature superconductor stuff made by the Koreans could have something there. There are these physical energy band things that are looking pretty good, which would even if it didn't confirm that it was a superconductor, it basically said this is scientifically reasonable that this could do it. So all the people who say, oh, it's complete fraud or like that, or a mistake, you had supercomputers and models saying that it was possible. She's since written a couple of other papers, other teams saying that again, that looks like one-dimensional superconductivity is there, and then here's some suggestions about how to get more copper in, do this, do that to fine-tune what is happening. In the meantime, there was major Chinese universities, Beijing and Southern University in China, who came out with a sulfur variant of LK99. So not sulfur contamination, but in the molecule, there's sulfur in some spots. So apparently there's like two rings of material. This was based on an interview from the Chinese scientist, Yao Yao, who said that you want to have it on the like an inside ring, not the outside ring. So it's normally random where the copper gets moved out. But if you put sulfur in the ring where you don't want copper to go, then when it does happen, still randomly, it would go onto the inside ring. And they found, electrical properties and magnetic properties that say this looks like a superconductor. So what Sinead Griffin says at the National Lab is she talks to her experimentalist friends, which is presumably other scientists at Berkeley National Lab among them, saying that the Chinese work is high quality. So they say it's high quality work, and her gut feel, the magazine asking her gut feel, she thinks it is a superconductor. It's not, the science is not an experiment. All the results aren't all ticked off to say, okay, yes, 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 yes. But she's looking at it, obviously the Chinese work, high quality work, and her own supercomputer models, which are not easy to do, saying this is all going to work. So she's saying, even though she may sound crazy, she says it's going to be a superconductor.
Wow. So let's see if I can think this through in my non-scientific way or my non-science brain.
Yeah.
So we have over at Berkeley Labs, she doesn't have any kind of a laboratory as such. She's not mixing up a stew and trying to replicate in any way, shape, or form what's taking place. Rather, she's putting it into her supercomputer. She's putting the formulations, she's putting in known physics in terms of how things work in the real world. She's now analyzing that with massive compute. And she comes out, she says, well, yeah, okay, I think this could. There's nothing here that says this doesn't work. And there's some evidence that it does work based on theoretical information that we have.
So one, it's standardized models and things. So it's like everyone who's working material science has these density function theory type things. So she's applying these known models to this problem.
Got it.
And then when they come up with, okay, it has these energy bands, it has this and that it's like they're basically saying it will quack like a duck, it will have wings like a duck. They can never say, even if 8 things say it will be a duck, they will not say from the computer model it is a duck.
Gotcha.
They will say in their scientific way, highly probable of duckness.
Right.
So they're saying it's highly probable of superconducting, but until you do the experiment to actually do it, but they can guide you and say, it's like some computer model of a sports person. If you lean in more, you should get a tenth of a second better speed, right? They can make that kind of recommendation, which may or may not
be true. Yes, right.
But the reason they have these models is because it works most of the time.
Right.
Right.
Or they would throw it out. They would throw the model.
Right. And then the fact that she didn't have a lab, Berkeley National Labs has people doing the work. And the other thing is that a possibility, we don't know anything at all, is that the national labs are doing actual mixing and work.
Right.
And they just haven't chosen to reveal it.
Right.
She could go down the hall and say, hey, how's that experiment going? Oh, it's looking good. So that's the kind of thing that you might get, right? From that kind of thing. But again, it's still unknown. But still, she's publicly coming out and saying, I'm thinking it's a superconductor.
Okay. And in the meantime, the Chinese labs that have been experimenting and actually cooking this stuff up, trying to replicate what's happening in Korea, but even going further than the South Koreans and saying, how can we make it even better? They've thrown some sulfur into the situation in order to make it easier to place the copper by maybe creating some no-go zones out of the sulfur. This is again my by
Right.
thinking about it. So we got,
That's correct. Except the original Korean team are also doing the sulfur variant.
I
They
see.
call it the PCP-OS, but it's, whatever. Basically, they're both on sulfur. So and they said the Chinese replicated them. They can look at the Chinese work, the pictures of it, and say, yeah, yeah, they got it. So they're both kind of saying we both think we both have it. We're not coordinating
Right.
uh,
Right.
closely, although I presume they may have talked to the Koreans, said that they would talk to people,
Right.
and they've gotten to the point where they both landed on the same uh, path.
And meanwhile, this don't remember her name, but the woman at the Berkeley National Labs has taken a look at what the Chinese universities are doing, and she says this is quality work. And that, of course, would give her more confidence in her own guesstimate that it looks like a duck, flies like a duck, etc.
Right. It's not just her, but her based on experimentalists she trusts who think are good. They're giving the thumbs up, saying it's quality work.
I got it. Okay. All right. Hey, well, it seems like every week on this LK99, we're now getting actually new stuff virtually every week on this. So
Right.
the progress is pretty amazing. Oh, yes. And then finally, again, for those who haven't seen previous weeks, there is a conference coming up on March 4th where various papers, at least I think two papers, or two people are going to be speaking about this on March 4th. Is that correct?
Yeah. The original Korean team will be speaking on March 4th, and then an anti LK99 team who happened to be from Houston who were doing superconductors that could be replaced if LK99 panned out.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so LK99 doesn't work.
All right. Okay.
No bias there, no
Oh,
conflict.
nice. That's all right. Nothing to talk about. Okay. What's up next?
So there's petawatt lasers. So that's a huge amount of power for a laser, but it's for a fraction of a second, a few femtoseconds. But there was some 10 petawatt barrier for the lasers, and they're getting around this. You see the little 2x2 square. So they're using tiles of the lasing material to get to like 40 petawatts, and presumably you could then have bigger grids of for lasers to get to even higher power for this. And this is useful for you know nuclear fusion, all kinds of reasons why you want more powerful lasers.
And you're saying only for a brief second. So,
Fraction of a second.
and it's
So the number of joules might be one or less than one because the petawatts is less than the fraction of a second. So it's like if I had 1 watt for 1 second, it might be less than I'm compressing the whole thing
right.
into a very tiny, a very short pulse.
I
I'm
see.
hitting a lot of power all at once. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
NASA just blew up a space station. It's on the ground. So this is by Sierra Space. So if you see the thing on the left there, it's kind of like a fat pill, and it's about 3 stories tall. So they like if you had a tire in a car, actually, a big fat tire in a car, you pump air until it blows up. This is what they were doing. It's and then you can see it finally fails on the second picture, and then it completely blows up in the third picture. So the work there is that it's 9 layers of a material in it. So it's like a lot of lining on a really tough inner tube kind of thing.
Mhm.
And there is already a material a space station component like this built by a different company, Bigelow Aerospace, that made a room on the International Space Station and that's been up there for years. So this works. They're just trying to make, bigger and better version of this thing for the space station or for other space stations. I think I should have photos. Oh, yeah. So we'll come back to them. So basically, I got some things out of order, but we'll talk about some next generation fighter planes, and then we'll come back to what this company is doing.
So now, if you have you're talking about space stations here. So I think I've read or heard that the International Space Station, as it exists today, is nearing the end of its life. Is that correct? Full life or something?
It's debated. So Axiom Space is a startup with several billion dollars that is taking over management of the International Space Station, because it's a matter of, it takes several billion dollars a year to kind of keep this thing going. And so it's kind of NASA paying a contractor to keep it going. And so the question of like how much more longer is economical to keep it up? Like if I get new space stations,
Uh-huh.
Starships or these things or whatever, then the International Space Station becomes less important because it is decades old, running down, breaking down, in the hard conditions.
Sure. Sure.
So I'm thinking the general feeling, I think, is maybe it lasts for 3 years more, 4 years more, but then maybe they keep it going for another 2 years. It's economic and other questions about like when do you get a proper replacement up there? When did it become more trouble than it's worth? It is quite a bit of trouble right now, but when the exact timing is, if you get Starship working and you start leaving Starship upper stages there, and because each upper stage of Starship is as big as the interior volume of the International Space Station.
Oh, okay.
So, and then if I stretch it, and talking about version 3 that's bigger, 1,400 cubic meters, then it would be 40% bigger than the International Space Station. So, and again, like it's a lot of maintenance and stuff to keep it working.
Gotcha. All right.
Okay, so we'll take a look at some of these. So there's 6th generation fighters called the NGAD, Next Generation Air Dominance Fighter. These photos are by a YouTuber, rendering by Pilot Photog. So the one on the left is the Lockheed version, and the one on the right is the design for the Boeing version. So basically, this program is coming to a down select of who's going to build it, build the airframe, and then build the engines. So for the airframe, it's Lockheed versus Boeing, and then for the engine, it's the GE versus Pratt and Whitney. Pratt and Whitney makes the F-35 engines. So Pilot Photog, a defense YouTuber, thinking about this stuff all the time, his prediction is that Lockheed will win the main contract for the 6th generation fighter, and that Boeing will get the second place prize probably of going to what they call collaborative combat things. So basically like drone wingmen. So those will be nearly full-size drones that will fly along with these things. So, and then that's the same thing on the engine side. Whoever wins the engine side on the main plane will probably get the engine contract for the drones. And there'll be like, 100, 200 of the 6th generation planes and like 1,000 of the drones. But the contract side will still be weighted a bit more towards the fighter.
And are these so where do we stand, the United States? Where do we stand now in terms of our fighter capability? Are we still considered to have the best fighters in the air? Because we don't actually get to go out and compete very often to find out who's going to blow who out of the sky. But
so the big information on how good other planes are is that in the Ukraine war.
Yeah.
So Russia has lost a lot of planes in the Ukraine war. So I think they've lost on the order of 80 combat fighters.
Wow.
Which they only had started the thing with like 640, right? So they've lost close to 15%
Wow.
of their planes. They have their Su-34. They lost over, I think nearly 20%. They had started with 120, and they may have lost on the order of 24.
Wow.
So I actually just wrote an article about that all-out situation, counting how many planes and comparing it to, China, Russia to the United States. So we know now that the Russian planes are crap.
I see. Okay.
So we kind of knew that before,
Right.
because you have wars like, Iraq war or some other
Right.
war, and you have a US plane versus a Russian plane, and the Russian plane would do terrible for the last few decades, right? But the Russian military guys who would sell equipment will always say, well, yeah, that's because they were flown by Syrians, they were flown by whatever. You can't count that. Now it's like flown by Russians, and they're still doing terrible, right? So there's no more excuses of like, oh, if so and so had only done whatever, it'd been good, right? So we know the Russian planes are crap, right? And we also know that that some of the other equipment, their hypersonic missiles, their stealth fighter stuff, other stuff. A lot of their equipment is being shown to be garbage, right? So what does that mean for China?
Yeah.
China has about 80%, 90% of its planes are either straight up bought from Russia. So it's like, I bought the exact same plane you got that's crap.
Right.
I have that now. I have Su-34s, F-35s, Su-27, all the Su-20, Sukhoi planes from 27 to 35, 36. They're all the same class of plane. The Russians didn't have enough money to like redesign the whole thing. It's like minor modifications or one engine versus two engine. They're not doing a bunch of stuff. So the entire class of plane this is an F-16 copy, and then we did a bunch of, just like you have like 20 versions of F-16s. So we can know all of them, and then we've seen the shoot down rates, they're all no good, right? So China has been doing a big study to say, oh crap, a bunch of our planes are we bought from them or we copied them. We literally licensed the design to make our own copies, and then we made some slight improvements on it. Chinese electronics we know are better. Just like all products, Chinese electronics are fine, right? But it's the airframe that's no good, and also the engines. Because the US, the UK make all of the world's airplane jet engines, for all the Boeing 747s, Airbus, all that stuff, right? So there's some fraction that go to the military. But if you can make great engines, how come you're not making engines for your own Boeing 767 or whatever like that, right? So Russian engines are second rate. Chinese engines have been third rate. Maybe there's some indication that Chinese engines are coming up to second rate, right? But still, fundamentally, the airframe sucks and they have all these problems. So China has just commissioned a study where they're looking more closely at all this thing, because like, this is all our stuff, what's gone wrong, right? And so they've determined that Russia uses them wrong, and then Russia didn't spend enough money on precision weapons where I can keep my plane far back and then shoot from far away. So basically, I know if I get close, you can shoot me down.
Right.
If I stay far away with more expensive missiles, I can stay farther away and stay safe, right? So that's some conclusion that they're making about this stuff. The U.S. also needs to look at what's happening there, because there are a bunch of lessons coming out of Ukraine about, we thought this weapon system at the category was good.
I see.
Going, okay, no, that category sucks. Or drones are now critically important for close combat, right? So there's a bunch of stuff that we're learning based on that. Hypersonic missiles, if you just have a dumb hypersonic warhead on a rocket engine, that is no good. Where I'm just like shooting it, it has some little movement. It's like the Patriot systems can shoot that down. It's been done. So, and those expensive, faster missiles, $10 million instead of $1 to $2 million for a cheaper, slower missile, or $100 million for a longer range version of this faster missile, you may not be getting the bang for your buck. And you may just want to buy 100 cheap missiles, because if I have an anti-missile system, your slow missile, it still will blow up the same. I need to hit it and knock it down. So one expensive missile, if I have a 50-50 chance of knocking that down, and then you shoot 100 inferior missiles, but I only have 50 shots in my anti-missile thing, then I still get overwhelmed with 50 missiles. So if we were looking at that, so this is the kind of lessons about like what makes sense to purchase wise.
Got it. Very interesting.
These planes, you can see that none of them have any tails on them. So the US is making things more like the B-2 bomber,
Mhm.
higher stealth. So the ordinary stealth plane, the F-22, F-35, have tails on them, which means that low frequency radar from the side can spot these things. Now, if it's completely smooth, then it's tougher. You still see it, but the stealth is just means I get closer to you before you know I'm there.
Gotcha.
Or
Yeah.
I get closer to you before you can get a weapons lock on
Mhm.
me, right? If you know I'm there, but you can't get weapons lock, I still blow you away.
Right.
Anyway, so the US is ahead. The US is ahead
Okay.
on the thing, and the US is learning lessons from the expensive F-35 program. So now they're doing faster iteration stuff. So the US has learned some lessons. The Air Force learned some lessons on what they're going to buy and how they can do it. And also, they won't allow, whoever they pick to win, Lockheed, doesn't get the rights to the design. The US Air Force gets rights to the design and says, okay, if you're charging me too much, if your thing is no good, I'll switch over to number two.
Right.
Number two is making the drones, so they are still in the game. They still have the knowledge,
Right.
so I can switch over to number two. That's why they're going to be doing the swap out thing, is because they don't want to get locked in to someone who's not performing.
Got it. All right. Very good.
And then this is just more cool pictures of the renderings from Pilot Photog of the Boeing plane version of the plane, and then here we see the main plane with a co-pilot drone system. In that picture was two planes, and then you see it from behind. Again, they've made modifications to make it no bumpy surfaces, things they can spot from radar, because radar needs to see bumps and edges and stuff like that. Okay, so back to Sierra Space. So they do space planes as well as the space stations. So they made this kind of like mini shuttle called the Dream Chaser. They made different versions of that. They should have that flying this year if things go right. But it would be launched probably by Falcon 9 in the payload thing, and then comes out.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so it's kind of like there's some secret Air Force spy plane, the mini shuttle. So it's kind of variation on that. The advantage of this thing is that it can kind of land like a plane. You can have low Gs. So instead of like I'm going 3 Gs up, 4 Gs coming down kind of thing, it would give us a smoother, less harsh ride. So there's certain things they may move up and down that you want to not put in so much of a intense roller coaster.
So this is something that a Falcon would take up into orbit before it releases?
Yeah, Falcon 9 or any other. You can also go up. I think it may be designed to go up in the Vulcan rocket, which is the new one made by United Launch Alliance that has a Blue Origin engine.
All right, but it goes into orbit, then it gets released, and then it stays up for
a couple weeks.
Okay, and then when it lands, it's able to come back through deorbit without burning up.
Right, because it got the heat shield stuff on the bottom of the black hole.
Okay, all right, okay.
And then you can see it on the runway. It comes. Think of the old space shuttle.
Yes, right.
Similar kind of concept.
Yep. Okay.
So this was the Bigelow module I'm mentioning that's on the space station, that little bulb there. It's an extra room that inflates over there. And this is the 9 layers of material.
Okay.
For the wall of it. So it's not simple technology. Like they put some stuff into it. And it's why they can handle more pressure than a regular aluminum steel kind of concept, because they're putting effort into the walls. And then this is a person standing beside it, the one that they blew up.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is the imagination rendering of like, what if I had several of these things with some solar panels and stuff up in space, and then my space plane parked next to it. Yeah. So the one of the advantages of having the small space plane also is that because it could stay up at your space station for a long time, so that in an emergency, okay, I get hit by a meteorite, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I got to bug out in like
Yeah,
seconds here, otherwise I lose all my air, right? Then you could be in the module right beside the thing, and then you could leave, get to your life raft,
I
and
see.
get out of there.
I
So
see.
that if they can make it cheap enough, then it'd be a nice life raft where you have like these things all over your
Yeah,
larger space station
yeah.
to get out. So some more space stuff. And by the way, any other question, any of that
Oh
stuff?
no, that was easy. I got that one.
Relativity Space is another space company. So there's several of these propulsion companies that have a few $1 billion of valuation. So they're pretty big. And Relativity Space is one of the funders is I think Chamath, the
Oh,
All In podcast guy.
mhm.
So it came out of like Y Combinator. So they do 3D printed usable rockets. They were originally talking about getting 3D printing everything, but they've now kind of partially 3D printing a lot of stuff, and then regular manufacture other things. So they've have a smaller rocket that they have flown, but they're trying to get to a Falcon 9 class class rockets, launching 20 tons instead of 1 or 2 tons.
Uh-huh.
So they're making progress towards that goal.
So is
Uh,
there theory is that they can 3D print it cheaper than you can manufacture it using Elon Musk's method of you know
right, right. That's the theory that they were originally funded by, and also you need to have a second place, right?
yeah, yeah,
So if you can become second place, then even if SpaceX is 20 times, 100 times bigger than you,
yep,
second place is a nice place to
right,
be.
right,
uh, but you can see the complexity of their engine. If you see the latest Raptor, we
yeah,
can see how much complexity there is there. The new Raptor is far cleaner. Like
yeah,
the Gen 2, Gen 3 Raptor is far cleaner. Again, the best part is no part kind of thing.
yeah,
So even if your part is a 3D print part, if I have a no part thing there, then it's easier. So SpaceX is not easy to beat. Um, but it's, you have, some view of second place. There's several companies trying to go for second place. You got Rocket Labs, you got, there's like, what is it? Anyway, so there's several. Like I can go over them, but there's like 5 or 6 in the United States, and of course China's trying to pursue this too. There's about like 10 or 12 there, but China market and U.S. market are separate in space.
right, right.
Of course, this is something that you know a lot about, and probably the people who watch this channel coming over from Randy's channel know about, is that Tesla FSD version 12. I call it 12.x, 12.1.2 is doing beta testing drives with non um, employees of Tesla.
Yeah,
And it
we
was,
would call them quasi employees.
uh,
They actually got at least one of them got a phone call from
yeah,
Tesla saying, "Here comes your version 12. Go
yeah,
out and play with it, and go ahead and do YouTube videos." So that
right.
was kind of intriguing. And so we've seen what about 3 individuals at least so far reporting.
Homar's, who are the other two?
Uh, I don't know the names. I just know I've seen 3 different
Right.
people coming out, mostly through Sawyer Merritt.
Yeah, right.
It's been reporting on it. Yep.
Yeah. And the runs aren't perfect yet. They're saying that, they had, I think, Hallmark had 2 perfect runs, no interventions initially, but then he's done more testing and it still has some issues. He was warned they would have, still a rough build,
Right.
but he's estimating that 1 to 2 months and it could be ready to go wide. They'll get the hard edges shaved off. And it also it's a method they've gone to full neural nets. So it was a 1 step back or 2 steps back, and then now they're even or so, or maybe even a bit better. And then they hopefully can start running faster with the new all neural net versions of this thing.
Yeah, and that's again for those who are not paying a lot of attention to what Tesla is doing. This applies to both the cars and to the robots and to all the folks that are making robots right now, is this transition from hard, what do you call it? Hard coding the bots, or hard coding the cars, to a situation where basically there's almost no coding except for setting up the neural net to be able to operate. And so apparently there's a few places like stopping at a stop sign where there is no, there may be a little bit of hard coding necessary, but there's virtually none. They eliminated 300,000 lines of code
That's right.
when they came out with this neural net 100% version. So it's video in, action out. Did I get all that right?
Yeah, you got that perfect.
All right, there you go.
Back over to space. So the Chinese ones that are working on it, there's a company called Land Space. So they're 11 years behind it because they're basically doing the grasshopper hops that SpaceX did in 2013.
I
So
see.
they did that in something that looks very similar to the grasshopper. They want to, I think, launch it like build a whole rocket for next year, something like that. And there's like 12 other companies, several of which have also done the hop stage, but none have gone to the go to orbit and then come back thing, which I think SpaceX did in 2015. So about 9 years behind. But they're trying,
Yeah.
to do it.
Yep.
So more information from Mark Zuckerberg. So he gave a video talk on Instagram. And one of the things he said was that Meta will merge AI and the metaverse with AI glasses. So he's making, huge bets, $10 billion or more each year. And he made $20 billion, $30 billion investment in the metaverse thing, which
Right.
had to pan out. So he now clearly still believes in the metaverse, but now he also believes just as strong in AI. And then he thinks instead of having a lot of Tesla bots out there, a lot of human bots, he thinks that people will wear glasses, AI glasses. So we'll see how.
So how does a person wearing an AI glass compete with a robot? I'm sorry, I'm missing that.
So we'll have cameras on there. So
Yeah.
it'll be feeding information in. You'll have your own, you'll see a screen in your glasses, right?
Yep.
And so it's basically just an updated version of that Google Glass concept,
Right.
where I'm walking along and then it'll tell me, okay, this building, this restaurant has whatever, or I need to go here or there. So that communication will be through the glasses. It means that, clearly glasses versus an 80-pound bot would have far fewer electronics in it, right? So they would have to do the bulk of the work in the cloud, right?
Yeah.
To give you information. But, if you could get 1 billion people wearing glasses, right? Then, you wear glasses, I wear glasses, so, then, it would have the scale and they would have the data.
I see.
That's their approach.
Yeah.
I still think that you need to go to bot.
Yeah.
And they may do all of it too, but they're going to make
both.
a big.
Yeah, it seems like it would be both. I mean, I don't see how the glasses are going to help you iron your clothes or move grandma.
Right. You still need a bot to do that. That's right. But it just, more information from the tech billionaire saying, here's what I'm going to do. And I'm putting a crap ton of money behind that bet.
Yes.
You're not pan out, it's.
And of course, we had the Apple, their new product come out over the weekend.
Vision Pro or whatever it is.
Yes, apparently they sold out over the weekend and did very well. So even though a few reviewers were saying that it's heavy and that they kept mentioning it was heavy, even though it was pretty amazing, apparently enough people were willing to put down the $3,500 to $4,000 in order to give it a try.
So Dan Ives, a Webbush analyst who analyzes a lot of Tesla, he also analyzes all the other ones. He was on an interview saying that he believes in Apple. They're going to have AI in the App Store, and they will get the price down to the mass market level of below $1,500 for the
Huh.
glass. So clearly, Apple and Meta
Right.
are both believers in the glasses because Meta has Oculus,
Right.
which several $1 billion. They've sold a few million of
Wow.
those things,
Oh, yeah.
but the software sales haven't followed on. So they
Oh,
believe that the AI will come into it. So it's not without hardware-wise, they are selling many millions of those
right.
things, right? But you have to get the price down below $1,500. Both of them have to do that.
Mhm.
Then you have to get the utility where it's actually good to use because um, Google tried with Google Glass
Right.
and spent a bit with it, and people didn't choose to do it. So
Right.
also in his talk, he talked about the fact that they would have 600,000 NVIDIA H100 equivalents. They'll get 350,000 NVIDIA H100s straight up, and they already purchased like 150,000 last year. So they'll get to this number. So that based on the NVIDIA being, so this is the purchase from last year, where Meta 150,000, Microsoft 150,000, and then Google 50,000, Amazon 50,000, Oracle 50,000, Tesla at 15,000. So you can see here the size of the players and their bets, and it's continuing. So it could also change, like
Right.
Google move up the rankings and stuff like that. But clearly, Meta's pushing as hard as they can. They're going to the 4x equivalent, although they're only a little over doubling their H100 level because they have to get AMD and other chips to make up for the fact they can't get enough NVIDIA chips.
Right. Right. Well, now somebody said that was it Google? Somebody said over the weekend that they were going to go ahead and start putting up their own labs. I mean, they're going to start making their own chips.
Right. Everyone would want, who the major player would want to make their own chips because you don't, one, if you're all waiting in line with the NVIDIA line, then, if Jensen says, I don't like you,
Yeah.
then you're screwed. So you have to have your plan B. Right.
Now building a chip fab though is a whole nother level of expertise, right? We're talking about significant money and significant uh, what would you call it? A significant lag in your knowledge compared to the players that are out there doing it now.
So they would not be building their own chip fab.
Well, not the fabs,
They would
just
go fabless.
I see.
It's TSMC.
I see.
TSMC makes almost all of
Right.
the world's
Right.
chips. They make Dojo, they make H100, they make the Google TPUs.
Sure.
So, like up to 90% of the world's best chips, the
Yeah.
only one that matter for this thing, are TSMC. Then you have like Samsung at 5%, 8%, and then you have Intel at like 2% or like that.
Right.
So the domination on that is why a China-Taiwan war would be really devastating because basically tech would get totally wiped out. So if they're making a chip design, TSMC is making it. The reason, as you said, the chip fab, TSMC is trying to make a new set of fabs in Arizona, their own thing. It's like $20 billion each, and it takes like 5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Intel, with tens of billions of dollars, buying the same equipment from the Dutch ASML company, right? Have not been able to catch up, right? So I have the same equipment.
Yeah. Right.
I can't make it work as well. Like there's some secret sauce of how to use it that TSMC has that Samsung can't copy, and or they do copy, they're like a year or two behind, and then Intel fell 4 years behind on, right? So the guys who this is all I do, right? Still take years to do it. So if you were to say, I'm going to make my own fab, right? Right. Then Intel spending, $30 billion a year or whatever, can't catch up to that. It would be, okay, maybe I can catch up to Intel, but one, getting the people and stuff. So just making that is kind of like this pinnacle of capability that is a lot of equipment. There's a lot of special secret sauce in there that is just has proven you cannot just copy. You can't just say, oh yeah, I'm gonna, rebuild the entire grid or do something like that. It's just like that takes decades to do. So I'm gonna compete with Boeing, and it took like Europe like 3 decades to get up there, and it took Boeing stumbling and messing up to
Right.
catch up, right? So yeah, it's just the FAMs are the hardest thing to
So
do.
I just realized there's not a chance in the world that China is going to invade Taiwan
Right. That I've done videos on
because
that where it's impossible.
the armies that would be raised by these companies, it wouldn't even be the United States Army. These
Yeah.
companies would raise their own armies to
No, no,
keep.
no. It would be the U.S. Army that would do it. It'd be basically Mark Zuckerberg getting on the phone and
Yeah, right,
telling whoever's in charge there, I paid $100 million for your campaign.
right.
Need my chips. Go deal with it. Right. So they would call up all their people and they would say, go do it. Right.
Uh,
And there's other reasons
yeah,
we can
yeah.
go to that,
It's
but
another day.
another day. So the specs on the H100. So several different flavors of H100. The important line here is um, the int8 and the FP8 tensor cores. Because AI doesn't need a lot of, like if you have 64 bits, 16, 32, whatever, that's for detailed scientific calculation. But for the I only need like 8 bits, 0 to 256, because I'm only dealing with the weights of the model, right? Which is like 0 to 1 to 0 to 56. So I don't need a lot of accuracy. So then I can go to 3 to 8 petaflops per chip, right? That's 3,026 to 7,916 teraflops, which is 3 to 8 petaflops per chip. So, that's important to know that spec. So if you're having that means that the 600,000 H100s, you see on the left here, my little text,
Right.
would be 2.1 to 4.8 zettaflops. So 2,100 to 4,800 exaflops. So if you recall, Elon said we'd get to 100 exaflops
Right.
In October
Right.
of the year. The interesting thing is that Tesla has 15,000 H100s, and the H100s are 11 times as good as the A100s. So that means 15,000 H100s is equivalent to 165,000 A100s. So on that chart where he said we're going to get to 100 exaflops, that was basically saying that they would have 300,000 A100s, or basically about 27,000 H100s.
Wow.
So Tesla could already have the 100 exaflops from using straight up NVIDIA chips and not using any Dojo chips at all. But just by saying, I bought 15,000 last year, buy another 15,000 this year.
Yeah.
Bob's your uncle, I'm done. I got my 100 exaflops. So this would be equivalent of 6.6 million A100s. So that goes to the fact that A100s are not that good, but just if we're still measuring based on that.
Right. Right.
So talking more about Tesla, the Tesla unbox process reduces cost by over 30%. So you've reviewed this, you did videos on that. So that was Caresoft, a company that does similar things to what Sandy Munro, the Munro Associates do in terms of tearing something down. They did digital twin analysis of the process and on the factories, that's the factories and the cars, and looked at every part of the process in super detail and determined that there was a 30% cost savings to go to that. And they're going to try and train up Chinese companies to do that.
So let me see if I can say that a slightly different way for those of us who are not up to speed on this.
Yeah.
So this company has torn down virtually almost every single car that Tesla has made thus far, and Sandy Munro hasn't even done that. He's only done some of them. This is a much larger company. I believe they have 2,300 engineers.
Yep.
They said they spent over 100,000 hours of engineering time to make this digital twin. And by digital twin, we're talking about a virtual copy of everything that the unbox process would do by weight, by size, by cost, everything else. But all of it digitally. They weren't actually setting up a production line and buying or making all the pieces and and doing all of it, but they just did a virtual simulation of what this all would look like. And with all of their engineering talent and with all their capabilities, that's how they came to the conclusion about these estimates.
Right. And here's a table that breaks it down a bit more by material cost, floor space savings. Basically all the metrics get a lot better for that. And they, as you said, did very detailed, a lot of work to come to these conclusions.
And the conclusions are the same that Tesla said, actually slightly more conservative than Tesla in most cases, but they weren't orders of magnitude off of what Tesla had been predicting.
Right. And they also said that their analysis is a 3-year rearview mirror thing.
Right.
Because, the company will do the actual future state thing, but they can only analyze a car from 3 years ago. They can only analyze things from behind.
Sure.
So it's the lagging assumption. And also things like paint or other stuff, Tesla could choose to do some things a bit differently.
Yes.
And get the savings that they're talking about. But when the other guys are saying, I'm looking at it based on variations of a Model Y.
Right.
So then they also determined that, some rough orders of magnitude that could save like $11 billion on factory builds. Although again, they assume 500,000 cars per factory. But they scaled it to a particular number, like whether you have like one big factory making 2 million or 4 making 500,000, it still probably factors out the same. So they just use that as a way to do it, and saying it would take $36 billion a factory to get to 20 million cars per year in 2030. That's a successful goal. If you do it with the new method, it's $25 billion using the unboxed method for the factories.
And that was based on Tesla's already super efficient capabilities in terms of building factories. They have probably at this point maybe the lowest return on invested credit of investment credit of any company. They were trailing Apple, but that was also hindsight.
Yep.
So you can only make that conclusion based on what Tesla has done previously, and not on and only based on the number of cars they're making now. But the same factories that have a lot more capacity, as the capacity builds, that return on investment credit will drop, and they could easily, potentially at least, pass Apple, which has been the best at return on invested credit for a very long time. So you already have a super efficient company in terms of creating factories, and now you're saying you're going to improve that capability even further.
And they also did this detailed analysis comparing, I think, Toyota, legacy auto, to the Tesla current Model Y factory to the future unboxed factory. So they analyzed all three in super detail and said, oh yeah, Tesla Model Y is ahead of Toyota, like way ahead. So everyone only benchmarks, coming up from China, they benchmark Tesla and they benchmark their own thing and they compare. They do not even bother thinking about the other guys because they're just too far behind.
So let me say that just a slightly different way. So in other words, he has these clients. His clients would be other automotive companies, including all the legacy automotive companies. But he said most of his clients basically are the Chinese. He says the domestic the legacy companies that make ICE cars haven't been nearly as excited about getting the information that this company is producing in order to get better at what they do. It's the Chinese that are really doing that. And then what he said is that when these Chinese come to them, they don't care how Legacy builds their cars at all. They're not interested. They only want to know how Tesla builds.
Right. And they want to compare to themselves. How do we get to what we're doing to what Tesla's doing? Yeah. Another interesting factoid on this particular slide is that they expect to save 54,000 people. So they were saying 180,000 people making it the traditional way, 126,000 using the unboxed method, same 54,000 people. And this is not even factoring in Tesla bot.
Yeah.
That, some of those things could not be humans, they might be Tesla bot.
Yes.
Figure AI is a company that's gotten $70 million, and they're making humanoid bot. You can see that the CEO, Brett Adcock, and then his figure robot is to the left of him. And so they got a deal with BMW to put some of their humanoid bots into BMW factories over the next 12 to 24 months. Probably at a small scale, a few dozen bots maybe, but they're going to do that. Get them in there this year, maybe toward the end of this year, and then, see how well they can do working their processes in.
Yeah, and I would say that this Brett Atkins impresses me.
Yeah, Brett Adcock. Yeah.
Brett Adcock, rather. He impresses me. He doesn't impress me enough to know his name, but but he's really smart. He's really clear. So for those of you who want more information on this, totally encourage you to check out some of the videos that are out there where Brett is explaining what he's doing, how he's doing it, how things are moving along for his company.
Mm-hmm. So this is a table from CERN Basher. So he's in the Tesla community, does financial corporate modeling, and then he looked at Tesla bot for the factory. So we're taking what the Caresoft did, and then looking to see what if we put in Tesla bot at a certain level.
So Caresoft will be that company you just described a minute ago, which has torn down the cars and then done this study to determine what the potential is for savings in these factories. And now you're saying this guy has gone the next step.
Right. So some different assumptions in what they're doing. Like he's talking about 20,000 people in the factory. He talked about their salary rates and then saying, okay, $1.7 billion there. And then what if we could expand and double with Tesla bot? So then he said 20,000 people would go to 20,000 people plus 5,714 Tesla bots. So one Tesla bot for every 3.5 humans. And that added cost would be $200 million. And then the previously the net income was 15%. And then he's saying the new net income would be 19.4%. Those are the green numbers. So he's comparing the first column is all humans.
Yeah.
The second column is with using Tesla bot. Yeah. So it's and then of course you don't have to stop at the 5,700 Tesla bot. You could go to a higher number, but this is just a first pass looking at how that would give you 4.4% more margin. And it also doesn't consider that maybe I could increase in production even more or things like that, just the first pass.
Right.
So there were some tweets from some people discussing 1 billion Tesla bots, and been videos about that, and Elon saying, 1 billion Tesla bots by 2040 could be possible. So we're going to take a deeper look into that with my own analysis of the 1 billion Tesla bots by 2040.
Okay.
So we look at the H100s again, because we were talking about the 3 to 8 teraflops. The PowerEdge 2U server costs $30,000 some dollars, right? And it goes up from there. The starting price, $30,000 some dollars for this thing. And if it's using the Intel chips and other things like that, you may only have like 100 teraflops of compute. You have to get, but it could get, it could pop in a GPU, in which case it would get to 3 to 8 petaflops of power for that price. But if we have a Tesla bot, it has 3 kilowatts of power. So then it could have a chip that's using 300 watts, 400 watts, which happens to be how much power some versions of the H100 draw.
I see.
They draw 300 watts versus my laptop probably only draws 20 or 30 watts. And then my cell phone is probably around 3 to 5 watts. So having more battery means they get more compute. So a laptop tops out at 20 teraflops and they can get a GPU in there. And then your battery life, if you had a GPU sucking at 300 watts, would go down to like less than an hour, right? While I could run a Tesla bot with 3,000 watts of power for 100 hours if it wasn't moving around.
Right.
And it can also, this is a small cup with a Amazon planned satellite dish, a tiny version, and the new Starlink Mini that would have a comparable size satellite dish to receive information. So you get 100 megabits per second in. But the 100 megabits per second, I can get 100 megabits per second in the city. If I'm connected right now, can get 100 megabits, maybe get a gigabit per second. But over half the world, like if I go to parts of Tahoe, if I go to, some redwood forest, something like that, I got no connection. The dead zones all over the place. If I drive into the rural countryside, I got nothing. Right? Here, it can be with a Tesla bot with this thing, I could have that connection. So then the Starlink Mini maybe only use 30 watts instead of 25 watts. So now 30 watts for that, 300 watts for the chip, or maybe just like more comparable chip. I can keep that 2 to 4 days of operation.
I see.
Thing with a connection anywhere. You have 15 teraflops for an Apple M3 chip on a laptop. Again, it needs 20 to 21 watts of full load. It had a 100 watt hour battery, right? So then if I'm sucking constantly, running my M3 chip, I can go for about 5 hours before I burn it up. Of course, I'm normally not going to be having it running compute all the time.
Sure.
But still, you have so 30 times less power. So 8 petaflops for my H100, 300 to 700 watts, my 3 kilowatt hours, I can run for a couple of days, even 4 days if I can manage my power.
Wow.
So then the weight, if I have an 80-pound bot, 20 pounds of it for monitor, like I have a monitor in the chest. I can have my Starlink Mini in the back, 200 to 400 times the compute of a MacBook Pro. So, and it's walking around. So it's I can't carry my 2U server that costs $30,000 and I got to plug it in, right? Now, my equivalent of a 2U server, which weighs 80 pounds, is walking around with me. So it goes to that it would be the gadget Sherpa, right? It is the golf caddy carrying my golf bag of stuff as I walk along, right? Yeah. Got every freaking gadget in it, and it's got more power, no compromises, right? Connection everywhere. And the power envelope 30 times a laptop and 300 times a smartphone. So even if it doesn't do folding clothes and stuff like that, just as
a companion,
I want to have the next level devices, laptop, smartphone, whatever, right? Then it's like, well, the person with the Tesla bot is the one who has 100 times the compute, right? That's the person who's got, and maybe has a screen, it can even fold out a bigger screen or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It could self-deploy solar panels to charge itself. So it can never run out of power, right? And it's 100 megabits per second everywhere. Oh, I'm camping and you can't connect. Oh, I'm dead zone. No, yeah, let me talk to, my C3PO to give me all the connection stuff. So you're never then disconnected from civilization because you'll have this constant power.
So I can see the day coming. The day is definitely coming, Brian, when having a Tesla bot will not be a privilege. It will be a requirement. The government will provide these for people that can't afford them.
Right. And then if we start off at $20,000, $40,000, if we're saying, okay, by 2040,
yeah,
if I started at $20,000,
yeah,
what's the price in 2040 for the 2025 model?
Maybe a couple of grand, right?
A couple of grand, right? Yeah. At that point, why would you ever own a $1,500?
Yeah.
Right? It's like, of course, I'm going to go for the big one, and then laptops. So then, also for use cases. So one, before I go back off that, there are, I think, 400 million laptop sales, right?
Yeah.
There's 11 million server sales per year, right? But the demand for servers is going to increase, right?
Yeah.
So this will be that next category of product, even without all the capability of the fact that it can actually fold your laundry, grow your food, do all that kind of stuff in the factory, right? That will be extra. Just only looking at it in terms of like, I want the best gadget phone.
Right.
How much am I willing to pay for that thing? And then this becomes that thing with it's like the iPhone replaced cameras. It replaced
so many things.
so many things, right?
Flashlights and yeah,
right. So how many things will just on the gadget side? Just on the gadget side, the fact that I can have a sensor, it can have a floodlight. Like instead of some pathetic little flashlight like that. It can have massive floodlights and stuff like that. Like,
well, mom would finally actually have eyes in the back of her head.
That's right.
The kids would never be able to get away with anything.
Yeah, and then let's talk about the using it for cleaning around the house and doing that kind of thing. So let's analyze that. So domestic health in Asia, 15 to 20% of households, like you're in Hong Kong, Singapore, those places, they'll have someone working in their home as like a live in or live out maid,
right,
for about $700 a month. So because it's at lower price, then 15 to 20% of households do it.
Yeah.
Right? Here we're looking at cleaner, the professional cleaner. If you had them on more like closer to full time, would be at $4,000 a month or more, 3%. And typically people have them in by the hour, right? Okay, come in 4 hours every week or two, help clean the house, and then people pay $500 to $1,500 for a Roomba, which is only doing surface cleaning on a flat floor for some areas, right? And then going out and doing it. Maybe if I have a bigger house, I may have more than one to do the zones. So clearly, if we can get the Tesla bot to $4,000 per month, and it's as good as domestic help, then you can look at 3% adoption rate, right? And if you're looking at $700 per month, then 20% adoption rate is not out of the question. And you have none of the downsides of like, maybe the worker has certain issues and problems, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And then if I'm replacing multiple Roomba-like devices, one for making my dishwasher automatic, one for doing the vacuuming, I can take a regular $100 vacuum and then it would then operate it because it is a humanoid form. So power tools. I have a bunch of power tools in the garage. It can use the power tools. I don't have an automated power tool, custom Roomba power tool, which doesn't exist. It can use my tools and do work.
Yeah, and then you save the cost of your security services too, because you just have a little picture of Optimus outside where you used to have a picture of your dog.
Right.
Because I'm a lot more worried about that robot than I am about your dog.
So this is a existing robot that's for sale, Relay Robotics.
Okay.
They have the Relay 2. It's in hotels and hospitals. This is many competitors. No one has a dominant market share in this thing. And they've been around for decades in some form or another. So this thing, the top half of it, when you open it up, is kind of like one of those automatic kitchen trash cans. So you can pop it open and then you can stick in a package or stick in whatever, and then it'll roll around and deliver it, right? So like the hotel can do it and say, okay, instead of sending a person up to room 507, they send this thing to deliver something up there. So it saves a person's wage, and that's $2,000 per month, $75,000 for 3 years for this thing. So for a far more limited capability.
That's fascinating, Brian.
So, and that's basically it. So basically then it justifies and then there's been analysis by other people that for the capabilities that people have already seen it do.
Yeah.
Already seen it, do stuff in the warehouse, already seen it in the supply chain, already did, do some other tasks. Saying, okay, I've already seen it do it, and I know there's a shortage of labor for that job category, that task category. Then you can get to justifying 1.5 million. And if you say, okay, $2,000 per month, people are already paying for that on a small scale for this thing. If I drop the price to 1,000 a month and then do 5 or 10 other things, then the use case, the value, the profitability becomes that no-brainer thing. So, so then going to that billion use cases, because it's 20% of households doing domestic help, that would be, like 25 million in the United States. It would be, 250 million or 500 million around the world. If that use case is later, the factory stuff, nearly 500 million jobs doing factory, probably 300 million doing various aspects of supply chain, 500 million doing various supply chain. So easily you get to that billion number.
Oh yeah. You've probably heard me say it. I, of course, was a manufacturer for 30 years, plastics manufacturing. And the first time that I saw the bot actually, doing anything, dancing, walking around, I could already see opportunities in my old factory of where I could have used the bot 3 shifts a week. I would have been more than happy to pay $10,000 a month for that bot to replace those factory workers, because we're not talking about anything other than in a plastics manufacturing facility. A lot of times, all you're doing is picking up the product after it has been released from a mold. You're picking the product up and you're putting it into another kind of, in my case, it might have been a trimmer, and it trims off the excess, and then it falls into another box, and then somebody picks up that box and takes it for finishing. So those kinds of things are really super simple. And there are literally, I looked it up the other day, there are 100,000 machine operators in the United States that operate some kind of extrusion, injection, or blow molding. And that's just the operators. That doesn't count the upstream or the downstream. So you're probably looking at something on the order of 300,000 people just in those 3 categories. And it just goes on and on from there. Super simple tasks that the bot that we're looking at right now could handle. In my opinion, I could be completely wrong, but it looks to me like it could handle it right now.
And the other thing is that when you start off, getting to a billion, when you start off at $20,000 a month,
yeah,
there are still probably a million sales right there.
Probably.
Even though at that high level, because of some high risk thing, something, right? Drop it down to, like we talked about, the $4,000, the $4,000, $5,000 per month level, right? It's 3% of domestic help things, but it's still it's that 10 million in the United States, 100 million globally, 50 million globally kind of number, right? You drop it down to $1,000 a month,
then it becomes,
and then you're at that billion plus, and you can go down further from there. If it gets to that 2,000, and the other analysis, there's no way they sell it straight up in the early phases. If everyone's going to come, the other bots are coming out per month, everyone's coming out with the per month thing, and then when they drop it to like $500 per month or whatever, $200 per month, it will be like this, that service charge of, I need to get that utility. I need to have electricity coming into my house. I need to have that. I must pay, $100 per month for electricity. And then I need to have my bot. I'm going to pay $200 per month or whatever on it. And because it will make money for you. So if I have it run my greenhouse, right? I say, well, go build my greenhouse, and now go run my greenhouse.
right.
Then, $5,000, $10,000 per year from not having to shop,
Right.
Because and there's no question. I have a green thumb. It will automatically keep that working.
Well, this is my favorite subject, Brian, is all this robotic stuff. It is going to be, it's the future for sure. And it is no investment advice on this channel, but investing in the only company that is publicly traded that is actually probably this year going to be manufacturing robots. I don't know, who would that be?
Yeah.
Somebody that makes electric cars. I'm not sure what that company is.
Yeah.
Brian, this has been delightful and fun as always. For those of you out there who this is your first time, please hit subscribe if you haven't already done that. Hit like for sure. Check out some of the earlier videos because some of the, if you haven't already seen them, because some of those have multiple other subjects that we haven't covered here. And then when you're done with all that, you might want to go over to My Big Future. No,
Next Big Future.
next. I'm doing that all the time. Sorry, nextbigfuture.com, which has this breaking news every single day, sometimes 2, 3 different posts per day, where this kind of stuff and more. Not, we only cover the top ones each week. There's more that's being posted every single day on everything from biotech to medicine to, just you think about it. If it's science, it's being covered. So, Brian, fun as always. Looking forward to doing it again soon. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, so also hit us up on Patreon, but
Oh yeah, that. And
but
go to
yeah,
my channel, go to my YouTube channel. You'll find everything about Tesla. And on my channel, we talk about not just Tesla, we talk about Tesla and the Tesla stock, but we talk about it in terms of the overall economy and the overall macro on the stock market. No other channel is covering it that way, and certainly none of them have a manufacturer as the hosts. Anyway, that's I think we've covered it. All right. Until next time, it's been fun.
thank you.